All right, let's check. Is this thing working? Test 1, 2. Is it sounding all right? All right, let's check. Is this thing working? That sounds pretty good. Let's get this thing going. Boom, there I am. How's my hair? Looks crazy. Great. Hello, and what's up, Yogi? How you doing today? Hello, and welcome to the final Friday feedback stream that we'll be doing on the channel, at least for a while. For those of you guys who may have missed it, I am switching up my stream times a little bit to make things a little bit convenient for me and hopefully for you guys as well. So instead of doing the Tuesday, Friday streams, I'm doing Monday, Wednesdays. So Monday will be the office hours hangout stream, and Wednesdays will be the feedback streams. So if you show up here next week and you don't see us here, that is probably why. What's up, Daniel? How you doing? Dune was amazing. The soundtrack was dope. Visually looked really good. Overall, just really fantastic job. I have a few complaints, like the Dune nerd in me has some complaints. I feel like there's some really interesting aspects of the book that they didn't really explore that much, but I understand that they were pretty pressed on time, and I'm hoping that there is like a director's cut version that has some more of the like political intrigue and things that are kind of going on in the background a little bit. But I thought it was dope. I definitely will watch it again. Check it out. And the soundtrack, like I said, is I would say like 80% of the soundtrack is unbelievably good. And then there's like 20% that's just kind of like generic Hollywood, like big blockbuster soundtrack. But the 80% that's good is really good. Anyway, check it out. Go see it in the theaters. Support artists making cool stuff out there, because that's what artists do. But yeah, so I was in the middle of explaining the new stream schedule. Monday, Wednesdays, same basic thing other than that, except for there's going to be bumped up an hour. So normally I start 4 p.m. my time, which is mountain time. And then I'm going up to 3 p.m. So if you're used to this starting right now, just an hour earlier is when I'm going to be starting. Some streams might go a little longer. We'll see how it goes. I think Hans Zimmer did the soundtrack, which makes sense because he's just like unbelievably good. So yeah, so new stream schedule, Monday, Wednesday, be there, check it out. I'm gonna make more announcements on Discord and social media and stuff as well. On top of that, if you want to be a boss and help support the channel, I'm doing more stuff with Patreon, or I'm about to do more stuff with Patreon, including extra bonus streams. So there's going to be an extra stream on Tuesdays if you're a Patreon member. So you can go check that out. Info should be listed below if you're not already a member. But there's gonna be a bunch of cool stuff going on with like the 50 song challenge that I'll be doing. All that kind of stuff is going to be, a lot of that's going to be kind of behind Patreon stuff. But if you are a fan of the channel, you like what I'm doing, it's going to be basically the same for you. Pretty much the same amount of content going your way. But if you want to support the channel and you want access to even more content and more of me, you can do so over on the Patreon. All right. So Friday feedback stream. Let me go ahead. I have not yet put the link in the chat. Go ahead and toss that in there. And I'll pin this up at the top. So Daniel, I see you already got a track in there. Awesome, I appreciate that. But if you would like to submit a track, if you want to share a track with me, you're going to click on that link that is pinned up at the top of the chat. And you're going to just put your link in there in the spreadsheet. Before we start doing that, I do want to go over the kind of general rules, the guidelines that I would encourage you guys to follow when sending in a track. First off, original tracks only, ideally like no remixes or anything like that, because of copyright stuff. YouTube's really strict about that stuff. But also, if I don't know the track you're remixing, it's really hard to tell what's you and what's the remix and original track or whatever. So ideally, original tracks. Also, ideally, works in progress. That's generally better off. That way you can actually take the feedback I'm giving you and the chat is giving you and work on it and dial it in a little bit more. If you don't have any works in progress and you just want to share a finished track, you're welcome to do so. But, ideally, things that you're still working on. If you are submitting a track for feedback, it is expected but not required that you also give feedback to other people. This is a communal thing. Everybody's supposed to get involved and help each other out. So, give each other feedback. Offer your opinions. It's really good to help kind of like get everybody involved and make it so it's not just a one-way street of me just like talking into a camera, but everybody gets to help each other out. As far as feedback, it's good or I liked it doesn't really count as feedback in my opinion, unless you follow it up with why and be specific. What are the things that you liked? A lot of the time, the advice I give to people when you are giving feedback, because giving feedback is a skill, is think about if this is your track, what's the next thing you do? What are the next 2 or 3 things you do? What do you add in there? What do you change? What do you get rid of? That's a good way to get started giving people feedback. That's really helpful. Songs will be reviewed in a first come, first serve basis, just going kind of top to bottom through the list. I generally only one song at a time. At the end of stream, if we get through everybody, which usually we do, I will open it up for people to submit a second track if they want, but one at a time, just to make sure everybody gets their track heard. And in addition, if you cannot make it to 20 of these streams, you can always just send me the song on Discord or just put the song in the spreadsheet. Anytime you want, it'll be on the list. And that means I'll just review it on stream. And all of the streams are posted on the channel. So you can go watch those whenever you want and check out your feedback. Yeah, that's kind of the general idea. If you like what's going on here, feel free to join the Discord, join the Patreon, all that kind of stuff. Hit the like button. Yeah, all that stuff is super handy. Oh, and also, feedback is free. You don't need to pay me anything for this. This is just something I do because I like doing it because it's fun. However, if you would like to support the channel, you can super chat and like tip me money or tip the channel money, which is really, really cool. If you want to try that out. Sweet. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get started here. We got a track from Daniel. Let me pull this up in 1 second. And as always, hold on, let me just double check what's going on here. Feel free to let me know if it is too quiet, too loud, any of that kind of stuff, just so I know what's going on. All right, here's the track. And let me make sure everything's working. That looks good. We'll check audio. Oops. I wanted to set. Nice. This is a super cool track, Daniel. A lot of really interesting, unique details here. A lot of things going on that are elements I personally wouldn't have expected. Like some of like the use of you had like a marimba kind of xylophone kind of sound thing going on in there that was really cool. That like Middle Eastern like harmonic minor guitar thing was really cool. So I like the overall concept of what you have going on here. I think there's two things kind of holding this track back a little bit. One way more than the other. The first one is the bass. The bass line to me, it doesn't really fit with the song in my opinion. And it also just feels like way loud in the mix. So it ends up like being very much like a centerpiece to the whole thing, when I think a lot of the other parts of the song sound a lot cooler and are more interesting and work together better. So if up to me, I would probably either tone down the volume on that bass line pretty significantly, or just swap it out with something kind of different. It's this very kind of like electronic-y pluck bass sound. And I'm wondering if it would sound just as good or better if you had more like a bass guitar kind of bass line going on. Same notes, same kind of progression, same idea, but just instead of doing this kind of like synthesized bass line, you have more just like somebody playing an actual bass. Could be kind of cool, and I think it'll fit together, and it'll add to kind of the vibe that you already have kind of going here, which I really like. So that's the big thing. It was just like so present, and it just felt like it really kind of stole the show from everything else. So when I think other things in the song are worth paying more attention to. So that's the first thing. That's like the biggest thing that I think could be tweaked. The other thing was your drums, and this only needs like a tiny bit of tweaking. I like the drums a lot.
For the last few years, we have been doing a song that concerns the fact that
like I like that kind of sorry, I lost my train of thought because looking at chat. I like the kind of like cymbal pattern you're using here, but using this very electronic sounding kick. And one of my favorite things about just kind of like drums and drum layering is being able to take a synthetic sounding kick drum like this one and layering a acoustic sounding kick drum and putting the two together to create something that's kind of somewhere in between. It's not really one or the other. And I think that would be a perfect thing to do here on this track. So layer up the kick a little bit.
the seasons have been affected recently.
Just to give it a little more kind of like punch and impact, maybe a bit more mid-range in there would be really great. Love that flute. That thing's great. Love those sound effects.
Don't seem to have spring like you used to.
And maybe a little bit more love on the snare too. I like what the snare is and what it sounds like and what it's doing. But I think it could be brought out a little bit in the mix. And also another one of the situations where a little bit of layering on that, I think will really help make both your kick and your snare really kind of like pop and feel like they're really doing something and carrying a lot more of the energy for this track. But yeah, I think it's really cool. It's really interesting. It has this very kind of like, I don't know, dystopian feel to it, which it seems like that's what you're going for. I also kind of like that like the arrangement is it's like a nice short and sweet, like here's a cool idea. I could hear this sitting on like an experimental album between two big longer pieces as like a little palette cleanser between them. Could be kind of cool. But yeah, I like it.
Summer or fall.
That guitar also needs to be way more volume, more present, more layers, more processing on it, just to make it sound really huge, because it's really cool, but it's just like it's getting lost behind everything else.
We'd like to do a song for you about the season we're trying to get over. It's called Winter.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Really cool. I think just dialing in a couple of those sounds, maybe swapping out that bass line for something a little different. And I think it's going to have like a really cool, interesting, dark, but not like too dark kind of vibe, which is nice. Yeah, chat, any other thoughts, questions, comments, ideas? Let me know. And for those of you who are just joining us, you are more than welcome to follow the link that is pinned up at the top of the chat, and then put your song in there, and I will get to it in the order that I receive them. So this is a track from Yogi, who is up next. That's dope. I like it. Yeah, really cool rhythmically. You got a lot of stuff going on here, and it's really interesting, and it's super fresh, and it sounds really good. I love everything about the drums and all the rhythm parts here. That's super, super cool. I feel like the rest of the sounds, however, I want to see maybe a little bit more love put into. So you kind of have like the guitar with delay section here, and then you have like these like crazy strings over here. And neither one of them, I'm gonna be real honest here, neither one of them are as cool as the drums. The drums are definitely like stealing the show. I think the concept of both of them can work, but I think that like with the drums, I'm just like, I'm feeling it, I'm grooving out to them, I'm feeling really good about them. But with the guitar is going so slow in terms of like the rate at which we're receiving information and notes, whereas the drums are like always doing something cool and interesting. So it really makes the guitar feel less important, and it makes it feel not quite as impactful as you might want it to be. So I like the concept of the guitar, but I think the pattern of the notes that you're playing should speed up and slow down. You should change octaves. It should be doing a lot more to help it kind of like keep up pace with the drums and the rhythm parts. I like what you're doing with the delays. The delays are kind of like bouncing all around, creating all kinds of interesting rhythms and different timings. So I think that can stay, but really explore the guitar. It sounds like this is a guitar you record. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But record a few more layers of guitar, and if you didn't record the guitar, maybe find a few more guitar samples in there, and kind of see what you can do here. get some different octaves in there, get some like different timings. I think it'd be really cool to make them feel like those two sounds really belong together, and they're both kind of like going in there. Is that just a synth? That's not a guitar? Maybe you're talking about something else. Whichever sound that is. Yeah, that, like, bring it up a little bit. Make it do more stuff in there. Yeah, love all the weird synthy stuff you're doing. Love the noise that comes in. It's just that, like, the guitar is not grabbing me. And like little sounds like that little part there, really cool. More stuff like that. More little kind of like little details, little kind of like sounds that just happen once every once in a while could be really cool. Yeah, like that. Love that. This part's cool too. All right, so here's my issue with the second half. I feel like the strings work really well in this kind of in-between zone as a great way of just kind of like building tension and creating this nice kind of darker ambiance to the song. But once they get to the drums, again, the drums really outshine them. And then it just sounds like it's the same couple notes repeating over and over again. So I think that they should change notes. They should change how they're arpeggiating or change how they're going through. So that way you get one arpeggiation to like build the energy and a different one once you've kind of delivered on that. I mean, I would be in support of the drums changing more after the break, but I don't think it's necessary. That was not something that like I really noticed because the drums are so cool. I'm fine with them being the same, but I'm also generally in support of things changing and things kind of evolving as the song goes on. Yeah, so Daniel disagrees on the strings, which is totally cool. That's part of the reason why I have you guys give each other feedback, because it's important to not just listen to me, but listen to everybody else and listen to yourself. So yeah, I think the strings are cool, but I think the strings should change notes once we get back to the drums to be doing something slightly different than they were in the middle section. But yeah. Yeah, that's, I think, the big issue with both your sound that's not a guitar but sounds like a guitar and your strings is they sound like a really short loop. It's just the same kind of thing over and over again. And you can get away with that for a bit, but I would like to see different variations on those concepts and on those ideas to make it feel more like the song is changing and growing and evolving and doing different things as time goes on. And you're kind of like taking your listener on a journey to more places. Yeah, maybe the strings come with legato, or like you get some like plucky strings in there, or again, octave changes, all that kind of stuff. The mix overall, I think, sounds pretty decent to me. I think the drums are a tiny bit loud, but I think you kind of want them a tiny bit loud in this, just because, again, that's kind of the concept of the song. Yeah, nothing's sticking out to me about the mix that really needs a lot of work. I think it's a little bit more of like production kind of stuff and just kind of making it not quite so loopy on specifically those two sounds. But love the drums, love the energy, love the kind of just like overall weirdness of it. It's a very strange track, but that's dope. Sweet. Chat, any other thoughts, questions, comments, ideas? Awesome. So if anybody is just joining us, once again, a real quick reminder that if you would like to submit a track, you can click on the link up at the top of chat, and that'll take you to the spreadsheet, and that is where you're going to send me a track. As of right now, the next track by After Party is the last one on the list. So if you'd like to send me a track, now's the time to do it. All right, so we got a holiday themed song, it looks like.
It's a nice and scary time, isn't it? I also worry a little bit.
Eager to get inside?
And getting my inside scoop tickles me, but in a different way. So far, it's been fun. But look at Corey's hand. Kinda gooey, isn't it? Can you imagine how that knife could slip and maybe cut her? Treats are so much fun to collect by making you sick. Jeremy can't see very well. Halloween can be a scary time. Just remember these few important things I've told you about. I hope you can have the most fun you've ever had this Halloween.
That was dope. I like that a lot. That sounded really good. Really kind of nailing the like lo-fi kind of vibe. This like very like old school vintage kind of hip hop like inspired thing mixed with the old school like after school PSA vocals with the video worked really well together. The combination of the video, which is like kind of creepy on its own, but also kind of like weird and innocent at the same time, mixed with the song that has like this kind of like darker kind of vibe, but it is also like not too dark and it's kind of late, worked together amazingly. So big props on just creating something where the video and the audio work really well together and they complement each other and they like make both experience better. So really good job on that. I think in terms of production and things about this track, I honestly don't have a whole lot of feedback here. I think it honestly stands on its own really, really well with one thing. I think your kick to me has a little bit too much of like a muddy mid-range to it. It has this kind of like thud, kind of almost a little bit distorted kind of sound to it. And I want the kick to be a little cleaner. That might be a personal preference thing more than anything else, but listening to that kick, it's like that's the thing that stood out to me, was just that like it needs to like I just wanted to feel cleaner. So up to you whether you want to go down that route or not, but to me that's probably what I would change. And also if you're gonna make another version that doesn't include the vocals, that would be interesting. Some of those synths have an almost kind of like Boards of Canada kind of vibe to them, which is really nice, which I like a lot. Love that little
It's a nice and scary
little synth line there.
I also worry a little bit. Kinda gooey, isn't it? Treats are so much fun to collect by making you sick. Jeremy can't see very well.
I don't know, bro. There's not really much else. I also hear like a little bit of like Emancipator. It's like Boards of Canada meets Emancipator meets lo-fi hip hop, which are all great things to have in there. I think it could probably stand on its own without the vocals in there and still be really good. I think the vocals complement it a lot and work really well with it. But I like what you're doing.
Halloween can be a scary time. Just remember these few important things I've told you about. I hope you can have the most fun you've ever had this Halloween.
Yeah, that's pretty much my only feedback is the kick. Like clean it up a little bit, but other than that, I think the arrangement works really well. The whole thing progresses really well. I kind of agree with Daniel again here a little bit in that I don't think it needs like a big climax or anything like that. I like that it's just kind of like, here's a cool little chill track with just some like old school synths and a nice kind of like chill beat, and I think they all work together really well. If anything, a little bit more of that little synth line you had over here, this guy. The little like electric piano solo, more of that I would definitely not mind as like a way to help kind of like progress it, and maybe use that as a way to kind of replace the vocals a little bit, because it is going to feel a little bit empty without the vocals in there. Use that as a way to kind of like carry you from one section to another a little bit more. Awesome. I appreciate you. Thanks for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm digging it. It's super cool. Really, like, again, nice, chill, lo-fi kind of vibes. What's up, Beatmaker? How you doing today? All right, so at this point, we've gotten through all of the songs on the spreadsheet. For people who have not submitted, for people who have submitted only one track, it looks like Daniel has got another one that we can check out. But I do want to just check to make sure if there's anybody out there who's just joining us who has not yet submitted a song. Now is a good time to toss it in there. Otherwise, we're going to hear another track from Daniel in just a moment. Hopefully you guys have some big plans for Halloween. Do anything cool? Going out partying, got some good costumes, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, Beatmaker, if you want to submit a track, go ahead and toss one in there. All right, so I'm going to jump over to another track from Daniel. Yeah, send it over, Beatmaker.
Something new is beginning. Or perhaps something old and nasty is reviving. A company called has taken over the running of a small coastal city, Holybourne. Even getting back and forth to work was becoming as dangerous for them as it is for our people. Then the people of KSF showed up.
I've always felt the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm KSF, and I'm here to help.
KSF have long-term plans.
We have the capacity and the space to change the world.
And the people of Olivar have decided to become part of them. Long-term plans.
To change the world.
Sorry about that, Yogi. I don't know how to fix the Nightbot.
Who are uncomfortable with the change. They know about early American company towns.
I've always felt the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm KSF, and I'm here to help.
Anyone KSF hired would have a hard time living on the salary offered.
No money. It's a dirty work.
In not very much time, I think the new hires would be in debt to the company.
Borrow, borrow, borrow.
That's an old company town trick. Get people into debt, hang on to them, and work them harder. Debt slavery.
Most terrifying,
Debt slavery.
most terrifying,
Debt slavery.
most terrifying.
Debt slavery.
And this has got a lot of really cool, really interesting stuff going on in it. Getting a lot of like Octavia Butler vibes from this, which is super cool. I'm curious where the samples from. I mean, not the Ronald Reagan one, but there's like the guy talking and what that's from. But it's really cool. It's like doing some like really weird stuff. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like Sun Ra at certain points. Yeah, a lot of different things going on here. What's up, Willie? How you doing today? Doing great. We're just checking out some tracks. Yeah, I'm gonna go through this little by little because I think this has got some like really. It is from Parable of the Sower. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's what it reminded me of, and I wasn't sure. Is it from like? Is it you reading it, or is it somebody else reading it, or where did that vocal come from? So in terms of narrative and storytelling and creating an imagery, like I heard this and I thought Parable of the Sower or something along those lines, and it progresses in this like very cool spoken word meets music, and the two kind of come together in this very kind of jazz influenced way, but it's also kind of electronic music. So like I said, a lot of colliding ideas, and I think it comes together really well. I think you're pulling it off, which is really cool to see. So as we go through here, I wasn't a big fan of your drum beat at first. I think later on, as you kind of get into it, it kind of warms up on me. But the drum beat, especially as it first comes in, it sounds like just kind of like generic preset drum setting. Like you just took like, here's a drum rack with all the stuff in it and didn't really do a lot to it. If that's, aesthetically what you're into and that's something you like, then don't listen to me. But if it were up to me, I would maybe kind of like dial in those drums a bit more and maybe put some more effort behind it. What's up, KB Noise? How you doing? But yeah, I like like a clarinet or something, the first kind of like flute sound this guy here.
Something new is beginning. Back and forth to work was becoming as dangerous for them as it is for our people.
There's like a cool synth that comes in around this part that I really like. Maybe a little bit more of that could be really nice.
9 most terrifying.
And then this part's really cool too. The little like salsa part where you like switch things up. Yeah, the clarinet's really cool. I think more clarinet and things like that could be really nice to have in there. If you have not listened to a lot of Sun Ra, check out some Sun Ra and see if that gives you any ideas, because I think that like his interpretation of kind of like jazz and how you can use lots of different instruments in very strange ways to create really cool ambiance would, I think, work really well here. So if you're not a Sun Ra fan, check out some Sun Ra. I think that more Sun Ra in here would go really well.
Words in the English language arc.
And this part's great.
I'm KSF, and I'm here to help.
KSF have
So like here, the drums I really like. The drums here I think work really well. This kind of little snare pattern, whereas the first drums, like they just sound a little kind of generic.
Here to help.
anyone KSF.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling here. I think a little bit of love on the drums, especially to the first drums to come in. A little bit more clarinet, and especially like squeaky clarinet solo somewhere in the middle could be really cool. Or just some other kind of interesting horns to really kind of like fill up that kind of like upper mid-range a little bit in terms of frequencies and give it a little bit more character. I love the little salsa parts.
Get people into debt.
And the synths and the spoken word all work really well together. So I think you know what you're doing, and I think you know what you're going for, and I think you know the kind of sounds that you're trying to capture, and I think you're on the right path. And I think you've actually kind of hit the nail on the head in a lot of ways for sure. But yeah, I'd be curious to see kind of how this progresses. A few more layers here. But it definitely like creates a pretty clear image of my brain of again, very dystopian. A lot of your music is very dystopian, which is really cool because that kind of stuff is really fascinating and cool to listen to. Chat, any other thoughts, questions, comments? Let me know. Sweet. So we got another track from Yogi, but we got a new one from Willie. So we already did one from Yogi, so we're going to do another one from Willie first, and then Yogi will jump back to you. Nice. This is really cool. This is a lot happier than a lot of the music that I listen to and I come across. So it's cool to like see somebody doing really kind of like feeling really good as opposed to really dark music, which is a lot of what I like, both what you guys send to me and what I listen to in general. And I think that you do a really good job of making it happy without it making it too cheesy, which I think is something that it can be tricky sometimes. Overall, I really like it. I think the whole thing flows really well. Like it has this really good energy. I like the swing a lot. The combination of all the sounds all kind of like work together and kind of complement each other. A couple pieces of feedback. If it were me, I would like to hear a little bit more of what you did right here. You have these two little like synth fills right here and right here. I was wondering, that one. That one there. Which, unless I'm mistaken, maybe you had those earlier. I didn't really notice them if you did. But little things like that, just to kind of like break up the synth line a little bit, could be really cool just as a general, like, okay, we're gonna add all these little kind of details and little hidden things in there. Or like little glitchy sounds, little sound effects, things like that, just to kind of like break up, because it's kind of just like a lot of synthesizers at once. So a little kind of breaks from it can go a long way. But in terms of other things you can do, I know there are those little breaks in there. So I guess you were doing that. Maybe I just didn't notice it. This one particular sound, I'm not as big a fan of. It seems like a lot of the other sounds at least have some kind of processing or other things going on. This just kind of sounds like a saw wave to me, which is nothing wrong with just a saw wave. It's very kind of like classic kind of sound. But it'd be kind of cool if you put like maybe a little comb filter, not comb filter, notch filter, or just like a filter sweep or something to like make it move a little bit. Could be kind of cool. I love that little kind of like echoey bell sound that you have occasionally. That works really well. All right, here's where you start running into real issues. Both this section and I think there's another section over here, your mix gets really, really cluttered. You just have too many things going on at the same time, and it makes it really hard to hear any of them. So starting in this section, right about 45 seconds in, you have those big saw chords, which are great, and they're adding a lot to the song, but they're taking up so much room in the mix. So I would turn those down and potentially do a pretty hard sidechain on those to make them bounce a little bit. And that way you get a little bit more kind of like dynamic range there, and they're not, it makes it a little easier to hear other things that are happening here. Because we're losing a lot of the mid-range of your bass when those chords come in, because they're clashing with each other. And then the same thing here. Those chords are just, they're great, but they're just getting in the way of everything else. So tone this down a little bit. You can use EQs. You can get really like selective about how you're filtering and cutting out frequencies. So you don't need to turn down those chords too much if you really love them and don't want them to be turned down. But if it were up to me, those chords on both the first section here and the second section here would be significantly quieter. And that way it's easier just to hear everything else going on. Those chords also, it doesn't sound like they're changing very much. So maybe making the chord progression here, it almost sounds kind of like the same chord with like maybe a tiny bit of changes in there. Maybe making those chords change a little bit more also could be real helpful. Does the clap change from this section to this section? It sounds like subtly different, which I think is a really nice, cool little detail you tossed in there. Yeah, that pad sound, like I said, is super cool, but make it change pitch and also turn the volume down on it. I think that's what to me feels like it's causing all this kind of clutter. And I think if you kind of like clear that out of the way, we're gonna be able to hear everything better, and your mix is automatically just gonna straight up sound a lot better. But that was the big thing I noticed. Your drums sound good. I like your little drum fills. I like your little filter sweeps for your transitions. Yeah, the whole thing works really well. And it's like, people mentioned kind of like, 8-bit video game kind of soundtrack thing works. I could totally see this on like a Mario level or like a, one of those like side scroller video games, and you're like running around, jumping on things. Works really well for that kind of thing. But yeah, sounds really cool. And the arrangement works well. I think you'd mentioned somewhere in the middle here, putting more of a break section. I definitely would not mind that. I think that could be a cool way to put the spotlight on some of the other sounds that are in here. Like, that's one of the nice things about adding little break sections or kind of like chiller sections, is you can turn up other sounds that are in the background and make them more noticeable for a little bit, and then go back to your main sounds. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling this track. Chat, seems like you guys generally seem to like it. Any other thoughts or ideas or questions? Sweet. Once again, if anybody is just joining us and would like to submit a track, you can go ahead and click on the link up at the top of the chat, and that will take you to the spreadsheet, and that's how you send me a track. Also, since I have some more people here now than I did earlier when I made the announcement, as you can see by the name of the stream title, this is the last Friday feedback stream because I am moving them to Wednesdays. So same idea, same concept. If you want to get feedback, it's going to be happening on Wednesdays. Also, both of my streams are going to be moved up an hour earlier. So they're going to be happening an hour earlier. We're going to be starting an hour earlier than they do now. But yeah, hopefully that'll make it so more people can make it to streams. Monday for the office hour stream and Wednesday for the feedback stream. Also, on top of that, again, since I have more people here, there's also going to be bonus streams for people who join on Patreon. So if you want to support the channel and you want more streams, Patreon's the place to do that. All right, we got a track from Beatmaker. This is a new one, I believe.
Real one, baby. Real one, baby. Real one, baby. Real one, baby.
at the end, or is there more? Look, I'm not sure if that silence is supposed to be there, or this is just some vocals you're working on later, but we'll listen to this too and see what happens.
Make no money, she won't drop out. Her parents are looking at her funny. Now, tell me that ain't insecure. The concept of school seems so secure. Sophomore, 3 years, ain't picked a career. She like, fuck it, I'll just stay down her and do head. Cause that's enough money to buy her a few pairs of new airs to retail. And why you always to the in the cool clothes, but we don't really need them. Things we
Nice. This is a really dope track, Beatmaker. I really like this quite a bit. I think that you could really I think you could really bump up the energy level a lot with this track and really make it a banger. And I would be totally in favor of doing that. So we're going to kind of go through it little by little. Love the intro. Your clap here, just put the tiniest nuance of reverb on that and then compress the shit out of it. Just like really like bump it, make it like it's already pretty loud right now. Like turn the volume down a little bit and then compress it and like really kind of bring it up, make it like really hit and be really impactful with like the tiniest bit of reverb on there. I like that cool, weird tremolo kind of sound. The hats sound really cool with the panning. All right, first big issue, and this is probably the biggest issue of the whole track. Your kick is way too small. I need it to be number 1, super loud, and number 2, super bassy. I like what you have now. It has a nice impact to it. I like that punch to it, but if it's for me, I would layer this up with an 808 or something that's just going to give it a lot of volume and a lot of just like presence in the mix. Because based off of the intro, I'm expecting this to go off a little bit more, and it doesn't quite deliver the way I want it to. Same thing here, a little bit of reverb on the clap could go a long way. And then you have this kind of like choppy bass line. I actually like it quite a bit. A little bit more distortion on it, like a little saturation, a little bit of something to kind of bring out that mid-range. Could be kind of cool. Or if nothing else, make it a little bit louder. Maybe even use like a little bit of erosion or something like that to give it a little bit more of like a crispier high end on it. Could be cool. I also think that maybe if you wanted to kind of expand upon this and bring it out a little bit more, or just kind of like get a little more diversity with what you're doing on the bass line, occasionally do a little like low pass filter wobble on it, just to give it a little like, I don't know, West Coast bass thing. Could be really cool. But like all the parts of your instrumental sound really good. The vocals work really well. All of the melodic parts work really well. All right, and then this part right here, it number 1 reminds me of that one song from the Matrix soundtrack. I totally forget who does it, but there's like a similar note progression with this like longer bass sound. But in this section, the hi-hat pattern, number 1, is way too loud. And number 2, it just doesn't do a whole lot. It's just this kind of like 8th note hi-hat pattern, and it sounds like you have some variety in the velocity, so it's like kind of different volumes. But make it really swing. Make it put some 16 notes in there, put some 30-second notes in there. Like really make that kind of vibe with the rest of the track. Because right now it's just this. It's very steady. There's also kind of like a higher pitched part of this lead that's echoing what the bass is doing, which I love. Make it a little bit louder. Sasha, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. That is very meaningful to me, and yeah, thank you. This part's dope. This might be a great place for you to start adding a little bit of like wobbly bass lines in there, like same kind of bass idea, but just, you know, a little LFO on the filter and kind of see what happens. Daniel, is that the track that I'm thinking of? Or just that kind of like that big break beat with that one note that kind of ascends? Really, I love what you're doing with like sounds like weird pitch envelopes on the vocals. Works really well. I like that quite a bit. Hey, here's the Matrix part. Yeah, really dope track. I like it a lot. I definitely want to hear this as it kind of progresses and you kind of change, you know, grow it a little bit more. Yeah, I think it's the woman with the red dress scene. I think you're right. Yeah, I don't think I have any other feedback other than that. Just a bunch of vocal chops and sample the elephant pitch envelope, the MIDI notes on it. Yeah, it sounds really cool. Works really well. I think you could really explore that space and play around with that and like do some cool weird delays on it, which it sounds like you're doing sometimes. But like, you can make this really kind of like this combination of like West Coast 90s, you know, Dr. Dre hip hop meets kind of like more modern psychedelic trippy glitch hop, kind of somewhere in between the two. And I think that's a great place to be. But thank you for sharing that. All right, Yogi, I know you got another track in there, but we got a few more people that have submitted tracks recently, so we'll get back to you eventually at some point. All right, we know this track is fresh because it was dated a couple days ago. And this is from Sasha. That's really cool. I like this a lot. Oh, on somebody else. Let's stop that. Really cool, really interesting, like old school IDM kind of vibes, which I am very into. I like the use of space. Like, it sounds like you're just like cutting a lot of things out to create these kind of like, you know, it's like that saying that like, you know, music is or jazz, a lot of times jazz instrumentalists or musicians say this, like, you know, it's what's between the notes that's the important part. And you really get that sense here a lot where you're cutting lots of things out to create interesting rhythms, and it works really well. I think that this could definitely be longer. I definitely would like to see this grow in a lot of different ways, depending on what you want to do with it. I think a little bit more melodically in here could go a long way, especially with all your use of space and all those things. I'm gonna go ahead and listen to it one more time just because it's short and I think it's interesting. Yeah, really, I love your use of the beat too. Like the kick drum in here is nice and like it's noticeable, but it's not like overpowering. And so you get this sense of rhythm, but it's not like dancey kind of music. Although I could definitely see this being used in like a contemporary dance performance or something like that. I also really like how it kind of grows and evolves as the song goes on, but in really subtle ways. Yeah, if this were up to me, I would start adding in more drums as time goes on, like have the beat get kind of more and more complicated while still also maintaining this kind of like choppy, glitchy IDM feel to it. And that way it kind of like builds and grows in the drums. Like you add in more drums and add in like some more hi-hats and cymbals and crashes and toms and things like that, but also still stays kind of glitchy. Other than that, I would also consider putting on like some really pretty non-electronic music kind of melodic element on here. I think a little bit of piano, like a really sparse, minimal piano melody could layer on top of this really well to contrast with the kind of like glitchiness and electronicness of all the things that are happening. Have something more kind of like acoustic or classical to kind of go with it could be really cool. Or like a guitar loop, like get a guitar loop and start chopping it up. And so you get different parts of the guitar loop coming in and out with the drums, like acoustic guitar, something like that could be really, really cool. This reminds me of something I listened to recently, but I, for the life of me, cannot remember it. It reminds me of an old Phonat song a little bit. I think that's where I probably got the guitar idea. But yeah, other than that, it seems like this is kind of like a little experiment. Like you sat down, just wrote this like all at once. That's why it's a minute long. Or you're like, maybe you're doing a minute song all month or something like that. Not really sure. But this is really, really sick. I really like it and would definitely love to hear more things. Like it definitely like intrigues me and I want to hear more things like this. Which is great. This is like, would be like a great intro song for an album or something like that, where it's like, okay, this is a little preview of what's about to happen. And then, but without giving too much away, if you wanted to keep it this length. But yeah, I love it. Really cool. Definitely want to hear more. Chat, you got any other thoughts, comments, ideas? But yeah, Sasha, thanks for sharing that. So once again, we are at the end of the songs by people who've only submitted one song. So I want to just give people a second. If you have not yet shared a song and you would like to share a song, now would be the time to do so. Go ahead and toss it in the spreadsheet and we can get to you right away. We got one more from Yogi, but he's already shared one, so I want to make sure everybody gets a chance. And once again, a reminder, this is the last Friday feedback stream. So henceforth, this will be happening on Wednesday afternoons instead of Friday afternoons, which I'm theorizing might be easier for people to make it to there because people are not getting ready to do stuff on the weekend. Oh, Daniel, Buffer Shuffler. You got to know about Buffer Shuffler. I made a video on it on the channel a couple weeks ago, I think, and I talked about it on stream a couple weeks ago as well. Buffer Shuffler is a fantastic Max for Live device for glitching things out and making just all kinds of weird stuff. Josh, it's going to be 1 hour earlier. I'm going to try that out, see how it goes. If people like it, I'm going to keep it 1 hour earlier. If not, I'll just move it back to the time it's been. Yeah, if you guys have not checked out the new stream schedule, it's Mondays and Wednesdays, both 1 hour earlier. So that's gonna be 3 o'clock my time, or I think 5 o'clock East Coast time, if that makes it easier for you to translate that. On Monday and Wednesday, same idea though. All right, we got another track from Yogi here. Thanks, Beat Maker. Glad you like it. Nice. That's a dope little track you got going on here. Really interesting style. Like, I'm trying to think about like what genre I would call this. It's like got this kind of hip hoppy kind of feel, but also not at the same time. I'll have to think about it. So yeah, and honestly, not a lot of critical feedback here. I think it sounds really good. There are a few things that I especially liked that I'd like to point out, and then maybe 1 or 2 places where I think you can tweak it a little bit. So first off, love the intro. It sounds like you're doing a little bit of granular synthesis on that vocal. If you're not, you should be, because I think that would fit in really well here. Just taking that ooh vocal and tossing it in like the granulator or something like that, and just creating really kind of glitchy weird things, and really kind of like sprinkling that throughout the track could go really well. I think the drums here work really well. Like, I can't exactly say why I think they work so well. They're pretty straightforward in terms of what's happening, but they just gel, and it works with everything else that's going on here. And even that bass line, it's like, it's fairly simple, but it also just kind of works in the whole thing. This part's also really cool. I think you can maybe tone down the delay on that kind of like squelchy synth line a tiny bit, and I wouldn't mind that. I also really like that little transition, especially that vocal you have right here. More stuff like that. This little tiny detail here adds a lot of like nuance to this whole transition, and I think more things like that sprinkled throughout the whole track would be great. Yeah, there's little vocal edits there. A lot of them are getting lost in the mix, so maybe turn those up a little bit because I think they're super cool. Some of them are totally fine on volume, but some of them are too quiet. I think you may be overdoing it a little bit with this vocal sample. I think it at this point I've kind of like heard it a few times, especially in a row, and I'm getting not as it just doesn't sound as cool when you use it too much. So I think maybe dialing this specific vocal sample down a little bit could be helpful. That little ooh sample. Yeah, take that vocal sample, toss it in a granular synthesizer, see what we can come up with, and then you pepper that in there. But yeah, really cool track. Like I said, just like, I'm not sure if I could quantitatively explain why I think this track works so well. I think it's just it sounds like you just have a good ear for picking things that mix together, even things that are kind of unexpected. Like this whole section I think is actually really brilliant, because it doesn't really have anything to do with the section that comes before or after, but it feels like it makes sense that it's there for some reason. And again, I'm not sure I can tell you exactly why that is. But yeah, really nice job here. I think that one of my biggest complaints with a lot of modern, especially like EDM, is that a lot of it is like really overproduced, and like all the vocalists sound perfect all the time, and all the drums sound perfect all the time, and everything sounds like it's been processed. And like there's like it's very scientific how you put it together. And this has this really kind of nice, just like raw quality where just like it just sounds cool and it's like fun to listen to, which I like. So yeah, really nice work there. Chat, let me know if you got any other questions, comments, ideas, thoughts, anything like that. Also, while I have some of you guys here, 2 questions for you. Number 1, did any of you guys get a chance to check out the most recent video I posted about workflow? And if so, did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you want to see more stuff like that? More kind of like me talking about just kind of like the process of making music, as opposed to just like, here's what the synthesizer does. Because I want to experiment some more with doing that on the channel. The other question was if anybody here is thinking about or planning on doing the 50 song a year challenge with me. Just kind of curious to see if people are like want to try it out. Keep in mind that if you can't commit to doing 50 songs next year, don't worry about it. If you want to just try it out for a couple weeks, there's no pressure. You don't need to commit to the whole thing. But just curious if you guys have number 1, seen my video where I talk about the 50 song challenge, and number 2, if that's something you guys are into joining in. Sweet. All right. We got another song, or not another song. We have a song from Josh up next. So yeah, so here's something I'll probably have to make a whole video about. The 50 song challenge, or 50 song a year challenge, is more than anything just about honing in your workflow, which is why I made the workflow video. So if you can't commit that much time, that's totally fine. If you want to do 1 song per month for 12 months, go for it. If you want to do, 3 songs per year, 1 every 4 months, go for it. It's totally fine. Don't feel like you need to overextend yourself or commit that hard. But I think part of the whole point for me is just showing that like you can, whatever goals you set for yourself, you can do if you're focused and you kind of get organized about it. So I would encourage you guys, even if you don't want to do 1 song a week, you want to do once a month or once every 2 weeks or whatever, feel free to challenge yourself in those ways. Whatever feels good for you as an individual. Because I know for me, it sounds super intimidating. Like don't think I'm actually gonna be able to do it, which is partially why it's a challenge. So I'm gonna have to really step up my game and really start like getting really focused to just be able to handle it. All right, we got a track from Josh.
I feel a little empty, feel a little lost, like there's something I've been missing, something I've been looking for, and I just can't seem to find it.
Is this your girlfriend on the vocals again, Josh?
Must be something that I missed, so I'm left a little broken, till I can follow 6. Been needing a distraction, get another drink, go looking for some action, 'cause I don't wanna think. I've been feeling kinda tired, but I won't sleep tonight, 'cause the air feels so cold, and your touching feels so right. I just wanna start some trouble. I just wanna start some trouble. I just wanna start some trouble.
Oh man, I can see where this is going, and I'm really excited to hear what happens once you get there. But yeah, this is such a tease because I love this section right here. I love the delivery that you have on here. But let's talk a little bit. So I like the cleanliness of the vocals. They seem very minimally processed, which is nice. However, like when you come in over here, where does it add some? That little bit of vocal effects also worked really, really well. I thought that was fantastic. And so I think that maybe throughout the whole intro, keep the vocals mostly pretty clean, but just occasionally have little bursts of those effects to emphasize certain words or phrases or things like that. I think that could be really cool because I loved this little bit of echo on there. So I think you really can play around with like sometimes having processed vocals, sometimes not as processed, and kind of living in that kind of limbo state where you're kind of going back and forth as a way to kind of like have this nice minimal intro. And then you have this bass line, which I think sounds good, but it kind of sounds like one of the songs earlier today had a similar issue where they had this kind of plucky bass, this kind of like synthy plucky bass. And I think it might sound a little better as either an actual bass or on the filter on that pluck, maybe make it not go so high. So it's just a little bit more low frequency. I think this bass has a little bit too much mid-range for me. And I think a little bit more of like a subdued lower bass would accomplish the same thing and create a nicer atmosphere for those vocals to sit on top. So I'm not sure if this is a sample or a synth or whatever, but if it's a synth, make the filter not go up quite as high on that pluck, and I think that will work a lot better. I like that snap a lot, but your kick is a little lacking a little bit. I don't think you need a super huge, gigantic kick in here, but I think you could definitely use a little bit of layering. I'm wondering if you want to put like a little bit more in this section, or you want to keep it kind of minimal. I feel like when it comes back in here, you should have a really subtle, really gentle, either pad sound or like an electric piano or some chords or just something to help kind of like feel like, okay, we brought up the energy a little bit. Like here, we keep it nice and like super minimal. And then here, we're bringing in like one new layer that's just going to kind of sit way off in the distance in the background to make it feel like, okay, so things are progressing, energy is changing, we're kind of reaching a new state of the arrangement. Even just some like long vocal harmonizations in the background could go really well. Here's what you could do. You could take her vocals, toss them in sample or something like that, turn it into a synthesizer, and then like turn that into a pad. So it's still her voice, but it's like a synthesized version of her voice. That could be really cool. And then just slam a bunch of reverb on it. Yeah, such a tease right there. I can see where you're going with it. Obviously, the kick needs to be a lot bigger. I worry a little bit about this transition because you have this little like empty space, and then you start with the snap, and then the bass comes in right here. I'm wondering if it might be that might come a little bit too late, and maybe you want to go from like the little break section right into the bass sound. I could go either way. Like you're kind of doing this like delayed gratification thing here on this transition, which I think can work. If it were me though, I might not delay it that much and maybe get a little bit of something right to like really punctuate this first phrase. Maybe just like a big boomy kick or something like that. I don't know. That's kind of up to you. But after that, I love everything about this section. The use of the noise, use of the reverse sounds all work really well. And I could even see this building into an even bigger future bassy kind of like delivery on that, which could be really fun. But yeah, I like this a lot. I don't think the issue is the break section. The issue to me is that like, okay, we get this little break and then we get this tiny kick right after. And so I think that like that transition from very like small amount of things happening, expecting something big to happen, and then it's not that big, feels a little disappointing. But then once we get to this space, this is big and this is gratifying. So again, it's like that delayed gratification thing, which I think is really popular right now and it can work really well. But yeah, I love the end here. I think it's really cool. I can see where this is going. I can visualize it, and it sounds dope. And you know, I've heard enough of your songs to kind of know your style a little bit, and I can definitely kind of see this going a lot of really interesting places. And I like the long intro. I think the vocals work really great. She's got a really nice voice. You're really good at processing it. Or what you could do Here's what you could do. If you want to keep the delayed gratification with the timing of the bass right there, is you get rid of everything here for this first little bit and make it just the vocals. So it's just her. So here, just vocals. Now everything comes in. That could be kind of cool way to like really, and then like super processor vocals here, make them really big. So that comes in like that. That could be really cool. But yeah, super cool track. So one of the things that I really appreciate is when people are sharing works in progress. There's a lot of cool, interesting things to talk about because it can go lots of different directions, and you can like talk about, you know, what could work, what didn't work, and how to improve on it. But with tracks that are already done, it's like, okay, it's already done. I can tell you what I think, but at this point, you know, Josh in this instance can like go back in and develop and kind of figure out where he wants to go from there. And I know for a fact it is infinitely more scary to share a work in progress than it is to share a finished product. And so if you're feeling nervous about it, don't worry about it. It's just, try to get comfortable sharing things that are not done yet. All right, so we got a couple more tracks in the spreadsheet. Yeah, exactly. You just share stuff, and like, it's not perfect, it's fine. That's how you get better. You share things in their early dirty stages. This track's from Dirac. I'm gonna jump around a little bit just because we're running a little low on time. Nice. As Josh said in the chat, that is some very housey house. Yeah, it all sounds really good. I think it seems like you understand the genre. You understand kind of what the expectations are and what kind of vibe you want to be going for, and what kind of sounds are going to work together to create this kind of vibe. So it seems like you have a really solid understanding of what you're doing here. I definitely could hear this at like an afternoon party at Burning Man or something like that. I think there's a couple of things that kind of came up for me when listening to this. So first off, the bass line I like a lot, but it never really changes. It's always just kind of doing the same pattern over and over again. And I think it could be really cool if this is just a sample to just chop it up and sometimes make it a little slower, sometimes make it a little faster, add in a few extra notes here and there, take out a few notes here and there, just to create a little bit of variety there. It also is very muted. It sounds a little bit like it's got like a low pass filter on it. And so it sounds kind of far away. And I think I want it to feel a little bit more of a mid-range in there, maybe even like some mids to maybe even some highs, just to make it really kind of stand out and make it feel like it's like pushing the rhythm, right? And that's like the thing about house music is like the drum beat for house music, you kind of know what to expect. You're going to get your boots and pants, you're going to get some hi-hats and some percussion, but like the bass line is what's going to make it groove. So you got to make sure that bass line really kind of stands out and feels really good. And I think it sounds good now, but I think it could be better. The other big issue I had was, especially during this first section, we have a lot of these kind of like kind of sounds. Sounds like a weird synth with like a filter that kind of goes up and down. They're kind of like bouncing around. Those are super cool, but they're not grabbing my attention. And I think for something like this, they're really great background like accoutrement. They're like really great accessories. What's the word people use for it sometimes? They help fill the space really well. But I think this needs some like real meat and potatoes to really kind of help make this section feel really interesting. And I think that you do a better job over here in the second section because you have these vocal samples occasionally. Where were they? Right, you had some vocal samples in here, and those were helping you with that. So something to help kind of really help this track really stand out. I think some like stabby chords, like stabby piano chords is really common in this kind of music, and that could be a great way. Yeah, ear candy is the word I was trying to think of. Thanks, Josh. I think they're ear candy, but I think they're not the main concept. They're not the main idea for this song. So I think, like I said, some piano chords in here could go really well. Vocal samples, I think, would just crush it in this. Just some like real awesome, they don't even need to be words. They don't need to be phrases. Just some like oohs and ahs and just some people making some sounds with their mouths or whatever. To add like a little bit of melody in here could go a really long way. And I think that'll help the song really feel fully fleshed out and really developed. So that's what I'd love to see. It doesn't need to be vocal samples. If you feel more inspired by piano or guitar or whatever instrument you want, but there needs to be something else in there. But I think vocals would fit really well. And then we have this break section here. I like the break section a lot. However, I think if I were to hear this in a nightclub or at a music festival or something like that, this might feel a little bit long to me. I might start to lose my attention a little bit. And especially if you're playing this at like a festival, if people get bored, they're just going to go check out a different stage. So I think this whole section here could be, significantly shorter and still accomplish the same goal. And I think it'd be totally fine. If you don't like that, if you think it's totally fine the way it is, then keep it the way it is. But I think this should be a little bit shorter. Because this part's cool. This is actually a great example. That guy right there, more stuff like that. That's really going to help out quite a bit. And then other than that, I like the next section here. It feels more developed. It feels like it has more character, but it also still needs some more ideas. It's also a little bit long for me. I know for this style of music, having those longer arrangements is just part of how you do it. And I think if you're going to keep it this long, things need to be changing every 16 bars or 32 bars or however. At a certain period of time, there need to be changes. And the way I'll probably do that is with percussion. With this style of music, little tiny changes in percussion make all the difference in the world. And you do it a little bit, I was noticing. But play with those hi-hat patterns, play with the percussion, like make little tiny changes, like add in like one new cymbal every once in a while, and it just totally changes the feel. So if you're gonna keep it this long, make sure that every like 8 bars or 16 bars or 32 bars, either one new percussive element comes in or one new percussive element comes out, or maybe 2 at the same time, however you wanna do it. But that'll make it feel like, oh, this is different and new, but it's basically the same thing. It's just the percussion has changed a tiny bit. So that's what I would do for this section, or or make it a little shorter. Yeah, thanks, Daniel. So username, literally anything is welcome here. Any style of music, any skill level, experience level, you could start it this morning, whatever is fun. You're encouraged to share whatever you got. I am gonna let you know that I do have today's one of the few days when I do have to get out of here at 6 p.m. my time, which is in like 13 minutes. So I will probably only have time for the next track, which is Solo Max. But username, what you can do is you can put your track in there. And if I have time, I can get it today. If not, I'll get to it on Wednesday on the Wednesday feedback stream. All right, here is the track from Solo Max. Yeah, Solo Max, I feel like if you guys are gonna come in here and share songs, I feel like I should try to give you feedback to the best of my ability.
Half my soul stole the other half. I've been feeling defeated like lost a lie. Stepped into the sea, follow the path of divine. I know you feel it, made the devil cry. Left half my soul stole the other half.
See you, Josh. Nice. That's a really dope track, Solomax. I agree with what Josh was saying. I love your use of distortion. I think it sounds really good. I think it's working really well for you. I especially loved it during the intro, and I thought you were doing some really cool, really innovative stuff for especially the first half of the song. However, one of the things I'm noticing here is it sounds like you have over compressed this in the master, or you've over compressed it at some point in the process. It sounds like the master, but I could be wrong there. Especially once we get into like the main beat section here, what I'm hearing is just over compression. And I think you can get nearly as much volume in here with the same amount of distortion and have it not quite sound so kind of just, everything just sounds squashed together. There's no dynamics at all. So I think you can pull that off. And when you do, it's going to sound really high quality. It's going to sound really good. So first off, the first section here, opening the intro, this sounds great. I love the like little bit of like crispiness, kind of like the vinyl distortion crispiness in the background here. I think the vocals here could be up a little bit in volume. They're getting lost a little bit behind a little bit. They're getting lost a little bit behind other stuff. Not a whole lot, but just up a tiny bit. Love that distortion. Love that little fill there. And then, yeah, here the amount of distortion, love it. But we can talk a bit about not overcompressing it in a minute. I just want to get through the rest of the track. I'm assuming you mastered this and you mastered it yourself. So same thing here, of a tiny bit more vocals, volume on the vocals. I think that I can hear them, but I think when they're singing like this, you want them really to be the main focus of the track. And so a little bit more volume there could be helpful. Love this part. All right, and then from here on, you kind of go into this more kind of like grimy, rhythm-y, squelchy sound. Which to me, it sounds cool. I think it works in the context of the track. It has this really kind of like aggressive sound to it. But it's not nearly as interesting as what's happening before, for me personally. And this is not to like talk shit about this sound music or anything like that, but I've heard this bass sound a million times and it sounded exactly like this. So I'm wondering what you can do here to make this stick out a little bit from other things that sound kind of different. One thing, besides sound design, one thing is just rhythmically. It has this really kind of like it's doing the same kind of pattern and occasionally it goes a little faster. Maybe play with that a little bit. Maybe use some triplets in there. Maybe use some negative space where you delete a couple of them so people think there's going to be one, but there isn't. Like, one of the cool things about this kind of music, this kind of like grimier, trappier, dubstep-y kind of thing, is that you can really screw with people's heads. You can really like make things really strange and people love it. So play with the rhythm of that sound, play with the sound design of that sound, maybe like occasionally do different like call and responses to different kinds of similar sounds that are like pitched up or pitched down or have a pitch bend in the middle of it or are reversed or distorted or whatever. Just like give me a little bit more variety there, and I think that that would work really well. Like you had this weird little one right there. That one in the background. More stuff like that, I think will go a long way. Yeah, like that little fill, great. More things like that. But more variety in that sound, I think will go a long way, and then I'm super down with this track. Yeah, you're doing it a bit here and there, but I want you, instead of like just using that sound, like I want you to really like, I don't know if innovate's the right word, but like really get creative with it and see where it takes you. And then as far as the master goes, I'm assuming you mastered this yourself. And the big thing a lot of people do when they're mastering is that they'll just crank it through a master, which can get the job done. And a lot of people, especially in the kind of like rhythm world, that's just what that's just how they master, is they just like crank it through the master as much as possible and then call it a day. And if you are really, really good at mixing, you can get away with that. If you're okay at mixing, it's really hard to get away with that. So when I hear this, especially when this comes in, I'm not hearing the impact of that kick and the bass the way I should be, because it's too compressed. So the first thing I'd probably recommend doing is check out the situation on your limiter in your mastering chain and see how much gain reduction you're getting. It could be a little bit, it could be a lot, depends on how you mixed it and how you're processing through your mastering chain. What I generally recommend trying, just as an experiment to see if you like it or not, is instead of using one limiter at the end of your mastering chain, use two of them. And I should probably make a video about this because this is actually really interesting. And on each one of the limiters, you're looking for about 2 to 3 decibels of gain reduction. So your audio is going to be going into one limiter. You're going to crank it up till you get about 2 or 3 decibels of gain reduction. So it's just barely going to be bouncing up and down. Then that signal is going to be sent into another limiter, and you're also looking for about 2 to 3 decibels of gain reduction. So you're basically dividing up the workload between 2 limiters. So instead of having one limiter that has like an 8 decibels of gain reduction, or 10 or 12 or however much you're doing, each one is just barely doing a little bit, but the combination of the two ends up with something that still sounds really loud, but is not like, doesn't sound really squashed, because you're kind of dividing up the workload between the two. I will talk about it on Monday's office hour stream and maybe make a video about it, because it's a topic that I think is really interesting and it's a cool little trick for mastering. But that would be my quick and easy way to get something that sounds really loud and not overcompressed when you're doing your master. Does that make sense? Hopefully. If it does not make sense, let me know. But I will definitely cover it in depth with examples on Monday when I have more time. But yeah, this is a cool track. I like the vibe of it. I really think that in terms of style points, which is really how I create a lot of tracks, especially these days, I think the first half to me gets a lot of style points. I think it's coming in with a lot of really cool stuff. And then the second half is like, cool, I've heard a lot of this kind of stuff before. So I want to see what you can do with the second half and really kind of like make that sound interesting and unique and like you. So solo mix, generally the way I do it is when I'm producing music, I generally have about 12 decibels of headroom. That's kind of what I'm shooting for. So when I'm producing, the max level coming out my master is about a -12, give or take a little bit. Then when I am mixing, just naturally through the process of mixing, I go from -12 to around -6. So I still have about 6 decibels of headroom when I'm done my mix. So the absolute last part of the song is -6 decibels. I bounce that out, and then in my mastering chain, I go the last several decibels from -6 up to 0, essentially. And a lot of what I'm doing through that mastering chain is going to be, putting a saturator on there, putting a little bit of compression on there, and then limiting it being the final thing. Yeah, I haven't made a lot of mixing or mastering videos for the channel yet, but I will definitely start doing more of that kind of stuff. Especially if you guys watched my workflow video that I just released. If you haven't watched that video, go check that out. I talk a little bit about how I kind of like divided my workflow from different concepts, and mixing and mastering being 2 of those phases of my workflow. So I'll definitely be, as I'm going through the process of doing this kind of song challenge, going through all the different stages of the workflow and making videos about all the things that I'm doing and that whole process. But I will definitely, at the very minimum, talk about mastering on Monday for the stream, and then most likely also make a couple videos about it because it's interesting stuff and people need to know about it. A lot of people have a lot of weird misconceptions about especially mastering. But yeah, it's a cool track. I'm really digging it. I like the darkness and the grittiness and the distortion. So keep at that. Sweet. So that's going to be all I have time for today. Thank you guys so much for coming by. All the people who donated super chats, you guys are the best. If you guys have not checked out the Patreon, that's a new thing that I'm going to be doing starting basically next week, is doing a lot more content on Patreon, including a bonus stream on Tuesdays. So if you're around on Tuesday and you're a Patreon member, I have to figure out how that's going to work, but it's going to work. There's going to be an extra stream. We're going to try it out. But yeah, you guys are awesome. You guys make this whole thing worth it. New stream schedule starts next week. Monday stream, Tuesday Patreon only stream, Wednesday song feedback stream, Thursday new video. So lots of new stuff. A lot of exciting things happening over here on my end. So hopefully you guys are stoked about it. And yeah, I will look forward to seeing more of your songs on Wednesday. Beatmaker, I know you got one song in here that I did not get a chance to listen to yet. I'm going to keep that in the spreadsheet. And so the start of the stream on Wednesday, that's when I'll listen to it. But yeah, have a good weekend, you guys. Have a good Halloween. Eat lots of candy, wear cool costumes, make some music. And I will see you guys on Monday.